My name is Mark Chalmers, and I'm President and CEO of Energy Fuels. And Energy Fuels is a unique company in the fact that we are building a critical mineral hub focused on 10 plus commercially recoverable critical elements, all required for reshoring our capabilities in the United States for those critical elements and energy generation. And Matt, I don't think that the timing could ever be better for what our company's doing and how we've been positioning this company for the last 5 years with the addition to our uranium vanadium capabilities, adding on these critical minerals. So it's a very exciting time.
Okay, we're going to talk about the US because every day I wake up, I see Trump has signed yet another executive order. And recently this morning, one on critical minerals. So you're right, the time is right. But what's going on over it? It sounds crazy fast, crazy busy. And I'm trying to work out who knows what. And you were in DC last week. So what did you work out?
Well, it is a busy time. And I think, look, I think it shows the sentiment that we've overdone this globalization. We've got to get back to fundamentals for the right reasons. Yes, I was in DC last week, and the reception with what Energy Fuels is doing was extraordinary. It wasn't good; it was extraordinary. And so, but it's all moving very quickly. So, yeah, I spent 4 days in DC. I'll probably be in DC next week again. I think there's a realization that a company of doers like Energy Fuels, that we have been putting these pieces together for 5 years. We've done global search to get the best projects, and how that will feed the United States is really the buzz right now in DC.
Right, and then there seems to be a real recognition that they got to get on and move. We talked for years, Mark, about the pace at which the West moves at compared to China and even some of the other Asian countries there. Where do you think this is coming from, and what's the problem they now recognize they got to solve?
When you look at this whole globalization efforts over 20, 30 years, people just went to cheap, got addicted to cheap. They let China take control of a lot of critical elements and rare earths in particular. They let Russia take control of the nuclear fuel products. Nobody cared. Nobody raised an eyebrow. They just let them do it for cheap. And there's no need to worry. So I think it's a panic right now. It's a panic. And that panic is what you're seeing right now, where everybody is saying, wait, these countries have control over us in a material way because they got established 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and you can't just wiggle your nose and change it in a week or a month or a year. It's going to take years to kind of claw this back. And Matt, as you know, I mean, we've a company of doers, as I said before. We can process NdPr at the White Mesa Mill right now. We've got monazite stockpiled. We've got multiple projects around the world that we're advancing to go into construction at the completion of the final investment decision process this year, early next year. And that is a remarkable position to be in right now.
Well, you used a phrase where you said we can produce NdPr. You have produced NdPr. I've seen it in 1-ton bags. That must make a difference to the kind of conversations that you're having versus others going in talking about the theory of being able to do it.
Correct. Yes, we have produced it. Right now, excuse me, we're processing uranium at the mill. We can, what we call phase one, we can process uranium or rare earths. We can't do them at the same time. So we can use that infrastructure we built, earlier this year and commissioned. But we are advancing the phase two, which is 5x larger. And that's well advanced right now with Bar Engineering. So, but yeah, we can, and we will. And being able to show that, and physically be able to, people can touch 1-ton bags and see that. And of course, you saw the announcement with POSCO.
Well, that's where I want to.
POSCO.
That's where I want to come to, because look, I think this is getting a little bit international now. Obviously, you're in the US, but we and I want to talk about Madagascar, and I want to talk about Brazil, and I want to talk about Australia, but talk to me about South Korea now. That seems the new addition.
Yeah, I mean, there's currently no capability to go the metals and alloy step, which is after the NdPr oxide, and to magnets in the United States. Period. Currently, so South Korea, POSCO, and some of the Japanese are trying to build a completely 100% non-China supply chain of these critical elements, and so that's the importance of the POSCO relationship. Their interest in working with total non-China supply chain through magnets from the mining all the way to the magnets. So yeah, they've done some initial pre-qualification. The product looks excellent. We're shipping them more product, and there could be, once we get our agreements in place, offtake to POSCO for a completely 100% non-China supply chain. Now, as I said, there are people focusing on doing those steps in the United States, and we're also looking at opportunities in the United States to do that as well too. But because there are no capabilities right now for the metals, alloys, and magnet step, there's only one option. It's going to go to South Korea, or it's going to go to basically Japan, or it's going to go to China. So right now, that's a good step for us.
Well, it's a big step, because I think most people talk about ex-China, I should say, is either Japan or is North Korea in terms of battery manufacturing, and these kind of rare earth magnets as well. So with regards to the POSCO deal, obviously there it's still sort of testing phase, etc. with them. But what are the kind of milestones that they need to see as part of that arrangement, and what are the kind of milestones that you can sort of give us a sense of, and timing as to how quickly something like this could move forward?
We're shipping them larger quantities, which they are going to put in through the process. They're going to make the metals, alloys, and magnets. We hope to have magnets that came from White Mesa this year. And it is even potential that some of that material can make it into hybrids or EVs this year as well too. So they want as much as we can produce, but we still have to get all the agreements in place. So, but the important thing is it's a big group putting their name behind this strategic alliances that we formed with them. And it's not, they don't do that lightly. And we're really excited that this is a place to build from. And as I said, we've hired this Deb Benetham, who used to work for General Motors, and she's helping us with that whole metals, alloys, and magnet stages. We're very focused on integration from the mines right on through, and we're making progress, leaps and bounds. And I think the market is just slowly waking up to it. But again, our timing couldn't be better, because we are accomplishing what we tell people we're going to accomplish.
Well, I often talk to investors about competitive tension, right? So obviously with POSCO, that kind of introduces the whole EV sector, exposes you to the EV sector, but there's other things like defense, wind turbines, etc. And also, well, quite frankly, I'm wondering what something like this does in terms of validation, and also helping with conversations back in the US, because that's where all the noise is coming from.
Getting to a magnet, the end uses of those magnets can go different places, including the hybrid cars, So, but as I said, you don't have the capability to do metals, alloys, and magnets now. This provides us with a stepping stone, with a very reputable stepping stone. But we're also looking at, stepping stones in addition to POSCO, because, it's a big world. And we do ultimately want to have a piece of the American pie in those steps with our company in the United States of America. But, people like POSCO, also supply to Stellantis and to Mercedes and Daimler. So they're a global company, and a lot of that stuff will make it back to the United States because of the magnets. So it's a big step. We got more steps to go, but we keep making big steps from that mines moving towards magnets, and a lot of people are not making big steps.
Well, I think this is the thing. We're seeing this in multiple. We're seeing it, quite frankly, in uranium, which you and I again talk about a lot. But I think today's conversation, given the recent news, a little bit more also applies to rare earths. A lot of chat about the theory, not a lot of doing. So I do like to think about maybe show me, don't tell me types of conversations coming up quite quickly. Look. There's got a few things to bounce around on today, and obviously I think the Chemours deal as well is obviously very prescient as well. What can you tell us? Obviously they're a very private organization, but is there what can you reveal?
Well, we've been securing monazite from Chemours, going back for 4 years, or maybe 5 years, and which has been extremely helpful because it comes to the United States, Florida and Georgia. It's allowed us to fully test that monazite, design the phase one, and produce from phase one. So that relationship has been very, very important to us for the last several years. So really, that the recent announcement this week was showing that we're planning to expand that relationship, and it's interesting because if you go back to when we first started securing the monazite from them, that monazite was going to China. Now it comes to the mill. And in that time, when we signed that first agreement, we went out and we secured, Bahia, the joint venture at Donald, and also the Toliara project. And that's in their wheelhouse. I mean, because they're really mainly focused on the titanium, zirconium, which are also critical elements. So we went out and basically kind of got into their space with projects globally. So the announcement is really we're working together. They have infrastructure on the East Coast. They have permits to concentrate monazite. They are one of the biggest consumers of chloride ilmenite in the world, and we plan to do more. And that all has to kind of roll out through the system. But it's a good look for two, U.S. companies of our size working together to solve a lot of these critical elements in the rare earths right now, with infrastructure able to do it right now. And, with that East Coast presence, the West presence. So it's got a lot of potential critical mass, and we're excited about it. That with POSCO, people are coming to us because they see what our strategy and how it's unfolding.
Okay, well, let's get us a quick update on Madagascar and then maybe even Australia, because I kind of want to come back to the business that you're building here, because I think it's quite important on a kind of fundamental basis to understand what's real and what's not. Who can and who can't, if you don't mind. So we start off with Madagascar, please.
Okay, well, Madagascar, we closed on base October 2nd. In November, we had the suspension lifted, which allowed us to get back on the ground. We signed an MOU with the government. I think it was early December. We started working on all the legal agreements to take and memorialize that MOU into the legal agreements. And we're working on that right now. We've got lawyers down in Madagascar. That's gone very well. Everybody is working to get this across the line. It's still Africa, forward-looking statements. We've got to get it done. We've got to show we're getting it done. So that's all advancing. And meanwhile, we've started this FID process on the Toliara project, which is supposed to be done early in 2026. The goal is to get all these binding agreements done, certification of this project, and go into construction early in 2026. And as you know, it is a world-class heavy mineral sands and rare earth mine combined, and I could not be more excited about that project. So it's moving forward, but we still have to get all these agreements done. Working very closely with the Madagascar government. They're very keen for economic development in the country. It would be the largest investment in the history of the United States in Madagascar. So So a lot happening there, Matt.
Okay, and let's finish off with Donald before I kind of come back to the business as a whole. So, what, Donald in Australia, what's that like?
Yeah, Donald, we're earning our 49% interest. Also in FID process, currently scheduled to be complete in the middle of this year, or certainly during the back end of the year, but is focused on the middle of this year. Again, advancing very well. It's in Australia, it's in Victoria. We've got most of the permits. We're getting some of the final approvals from the ministers on that project. Again, a great example of an Australian company working with a U.S. company, just like Madagascar working in the United States, and it's a very large source of monazite as well too. So here we have a project that could go into construction at Donald this year. We've got Toliara, which could go into construction early next year, and then we got White Mesa with this phase 2 advancing. So yeah, a lot going on, Matt.
Yeah, okay. And I remember we said 2 years ago, you said to me, right, I need to get feed. I need to get the source of material that can feed the plant. So you have the big vision, the big plan, and then you have to go out and find this stuff. You can find the right stuff because there's a lot of not so good projects out there. And you seem to be advancing like on four fronts here, which is great. And again, we will come back to it. But the goal is to kind of feed the White Mesa mill, right? That's the kind of that's where the money is, right?
Well, the heavy mineral sand is a real cash generator in terms of the titanium zirconium elements, and on its own right, and that doesn't have to come to the mill, but it could go to others. In the heavy mineral sand business wants that feedstock, but the monazite, yes, will come to the mill. It will come to the mill in large scales, supported as a byproduct production on the back of the heavy mineral sand revenues. And so, yes, we went out to secure that upstream, and we've done that, and we've got these projects, and there are more projects, companies still talking to us on the front end as well, but we've got a pretty full plate right now.
I guess where I'm going with this is everything's sort of coming to a sort of central point. As you say, the timing could not be better in a market like this. What are you kind of focused on when it comes to everything at home with regards to White Mesa Mill, the expansion there, to build this thing out to be able to kind of deliver the vision?
By the end of this year, we're going to have, we'll have either FIDs completed, we'll have the definitive feasibility, bankable feasibility study completed at White Mesa. We'll have the FID well advanced on Toliara, and we hope to have all or most or a lot of the permits on all those projects so that we can then say, here's a project ready to go into construction. Here's the economics. It's fully permitted. Here's another one. Here's another one. And we can knit it together based on the most updated information and show people that it has the scale, the ability to move forward, and supply, we believe, about 50% of the United States rare earths by 2028, and these projects are well going down that path. So we tell the new administration, we call it Project 2028, that we can be world significant scale by 2028 in this term, and deliver, and it's happening as we speak, and it can be demonstrated that it's happening as we speak.
But to kind of do this build out and kind of move everything forward, you're going to need to, well, how many more companies do you need to engage with? Because you're saying the market's there, but you're going to need to engage with these companies, get a sense of what these contracts could look like, and get an idea around margins. I think rare earths has been fairly erratic in the past, has been controlled and perhaps even manipulated by China. You talk about ex-China markets, ex-China pricing potentially, but you're going to need customers. So have you got the team aboard who can deliver that for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, you got to look at the pieces that we have. I mean, the heavy mineral sands base has a team that's been doing that for the last many years that understand that sector. When you look at the rare earths, I mean, you've got like, a budding relationship with POSCO, and Chemours. We've got Deb Benethan, who worked for General Motors. We're developing those relationships. Everyone wants a non-China source, and there are not many choices, but we still got some work to do there as well. And then, of course, on the uranium side, we've got long-term relationships with many nuclear utilities. So we've got a flying head start that others don't have. I mean, you can't just come in to this business like from the copper business or the gold business and have those relationships. We have built those relationships with our internal people, including the acquisitions, at a very significant scale. So we've got a large footprint and credibility to launch from. But there is still a lot of work. And the whole issue of the lower prices of the rare earths, and the China manipulation are still real factors out there that we still have to address. And we're working on it to address it.
Okay, just coming back to the kind of the government component. Obviously, you talked about being in DC and some of the conversations that you've had there with the right people. We mustn't forget the uranium component. Okay, so there's the energy component in the shape of uranium, and then we're kind of the rare earths and magnets as well on the other hand. So the government is listening, but the government is also potentially causing some ripples in the market, certainly some uncertainty. We've seen tariff conversations happening, some metals written into that and some not yet. How, as a US company, does that help or hinder you, that environment?
Well, I wish I could tell you in full detail because I don't know. I mean, I think that, one of the things that's happening here is the administration is moving quickly. And I think when they move, they realize in some cases they need to have some waivers or adjustments to what the policy could be. And I think you're seeing some of that happening right now. But again, we're driving our bus. We're driving our bus that we can manage that, whether it be bringing all this material to the United States, or if it has to, some of it could go to Europe or to Asia, but I don't know the impacts of all the tariffs right at this point in time. I think the most important thing with these dynamics is the focus and emphasis of the new administration on reshoring the ability to have these critical materials, not just the elements, back in the United States and make material movement. So I think as long as you have the right projects, the right momentum, the right timelines, I think there's going to be ways to manage that over time.
And just sticking with the same thing, which is, and the geopolitics of all of this, in terms of America's desire to kind of, secure these minerals. We've heard talks about, Greenland, Panama, and the like. And it's kind of, again, as you say, you're not quite sure what way the wind's going to blow that day. But with jurisdictions like Madagascar, Brazil, Australia, and obviously partnerships in South Korea, do you feel relatively confident about the geopolitical and jurisdictional risk?
Geopolitical risk. I mean, they're not just in foreign countries; they're also in the United States and in Canada and Mexico, even though Canada and Mexico are foreign countries. So yeah, I mean, again, Matt, we just take it a step at a time, getting the right projects, getting the right strategy in place, with the right focus, delivering on what we say, but we do and have been getting a very good, excellent reception with the new administration. They're pro-business, they're pro-mining, they're pro-critical elements and rare earths, and we're gonna ride that as hard as we can for all the right reasons, because we are real. We will deliver. We are delivering, and over the last 4 years, I believe we have done that at the highest level, and I think people who've watched it have been amazed at how we've been delivering those steps.
I've got to finish off. I've got to ask you about uranium. I get told off if I don't. How are you calling the uranium market at the moment?
The spot is down, but the term market is still pretty strong. I think you can get a contract at, in the 80s at term. We're not prepared to sell uranium in the 60s on the spot. But I also believe that the replacement value of a pound uranium is north of $100 a pound, and so I'm really not that excited about selling uranium at $80 either, or 85. So we've got this core of contracts that is a fairly small percentage of our production over time, and we're just waiting for the market to strengthen, and it has to, because they're the replacement value has to be considered and be integrated as well too, because you have to be able to find that pound, permit that pound, build that project, and mine it and reclaim it. And it is in $65, and I don't believe it's even in the 80s with a new project.
Okay, I think we'll leave that one there. Maybe come back on and talk about uranium specifically another time. But because I was really trying to catch up on this rare earth advance of yours and get a sense of what the conversations in DC were like. Sounds positive.
It is positive, and as I said, we started this diversification, still keeping uranium front and center 5 years ago, and the timing couldn't be better.